Welcome to the Vin and Mike podcast as we hit episode 6 on this beautiful President's Day. A nice day to be off for a lot of people and enjoy a nice long weekend. Mike, I know that's something you're doing.
Yes. Nothing like a long weekend, Vin.
Yeah, it's definitely
relaxing, being lazy.
That's right, especially
finally enjoying the New Jersey weather because it's been so bad. So today was a beautiful day.
Yeah, it was about 60 degrees around here today for everybody in the tri-state area. So that was really nice. And it was our first weekend with no football. You know, it's like a sad weekend, but at the same time, a little bit exciting weekend as the Daytona 500 was on yesterday. That was kind of exciting. But I think the more exciting thing for me is I have my good friend on with us this week, Antwan Staley. Twan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. So if people don't know who Twan has been covering sports for a long time, and he's currently with the Register Guard out in Oregon, covering the Oregon Ducks, mainly football, some women's basketball for the Register. He's also covered numerous sports for various organizations, including the USA Today Sports Media Group, where he did print, he did digital, he did broadcast on that side. He covered the Carolina Panthers at one time for the Riot Report. I know for about 5 years, he covered the Miami Dolphins. He can talk a little bit about that. And he's also originally from the North Carolina area, Winston-Salem, graduate of East Carolina University with his bachelor's in communications. So we're really happy to have Twan on tonight. So Twan, great to have you again.
It's good to be with you. I've done some other stuff too, but yeah, we don't want to be here all night running down my whole resume. So.
We'll go over the whole resume.
We'll have a 45-minute show on Twan's resume.
Yeah. No, let's not.
So, but with all that said, yesterday was an exciting day in a different way in sports, and it's always something that pops up once in a while. It's a little controversy and craziness, and it just came down not too long ago that Juwan Howard actually has been suspended for the rest of the season from Michigan due to the incident yesterday. So for anyone that doesn't know what happened, Michigan played Wisconsin yesterday. Post game, the handshakes walking down, he came into contact with the head coach of Wisconsin, didn't really want to talk to him. Wisconsin head coach wanted to talk to him. They got separated a little bit, and then an assistant from Wisconsin came over. Juwan reached out, smacked him in the head, and then a little more melee. Didn't get too crazy as far as a melee on the court, but on CBS, as they're wrapping up coverage, shown to everybody, and it was a crazy situation. Mike, I'll let you take over first on some of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so, from what I understand, I mean, at that point, Wisconsin was up by a good amount of points. And then with 3 or 4 seconds to go, they call a timeout. And obviously, Juwan Howard, he's upset. He's upset because they're winning by a bunch of points. Why would you call a timeout? And I agree with him that it was wrong. You just let them play out. However, him punching the coach, the assistant coach, obviously he was upset. But as a coach, you have a certain precedent. Kids come to your school, you recruit these kids to show a certain maturity. So yes, there's going to be tensions, and yes, there's going to be things that are done wrong. But the way he acted, there had to be an action. Now, do I think he should have been fired? Absolutely not. He's human. He made a mistake. And Vinny, right before the show, had said, he is suspended. I do agree with that. At the same time, we have to look at college basketball and all sports to really look at as far as leadership and as far as just common courtesy and what you do in games. And I just felt again that yes, the Wisconsin team was wrong to call those timeouts towards the end, especially with the huge lead like that. I understand why he's upset, but again, you have to show a maturity and leadership as a coach. So that's where I'm at there.
Yeah, Twan, I'd like to get some of your input on the situation.
Well, I mean, for me, I think it was the right call. The regular season, if they had suspended him also for the rest of the just season period, including postseason play, I don't think I necessarily would have had a problem with it either. Yeah, I didn't think he did deserve to be fired, at least not right now. I mean, at least this gives Michigan an opportunity just to kind of say, you know what, let's see what the rest of the season might bring, and let's have a few more days so we can go over the situation and then decide what we want to do. My biggest problem with the situation with Juwan Howard, like, this is not his first strike. This is like an isolated situation that I think, okay, something got out of hand, and yeah, I don't think he deserved to be fired. But this is his second incident. If you remember correctly, he had an incident with the Maryland former head coach last year in the Big Ten tournament, which kind of turned a little ugly, and he got suspended for that. So he's on strike 2 now. Now I know they made the Elite Eight last year, and he did a solid job for the Wolverines. But they've kind of taken a step back this particular year, and I don't know if he's on the hot seat, but he's like, his rope is getting shorter, especially when you continue to have incidents like this. And I mean, and no disrespect to Juwan Howard, I mean, he was an assistant coach for the Miami Heat for a long time. Obviously, we know his playing career, but I'm not sure he should have got the job in the first place. But that's a whole nother conversation. I think we already know why he did, because of his history with Michigan basketball and the legacy left there. But the fact of the matter is this: like, he's on strike 2. He really can't have any more incidents like this, or obviously he's gonna have to turn it around in Michigan, maybe if not this year, but next year, if he wants to continue being their coach moving forward in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I know the incident with Maryland. The excuse was, he's from the south side of Chicago, and someone that comes at you, that's the way that you react. I thought yesterday's reaction really showed a lack of leadership on his part. I think part of being a head coach in any sport, especially at the college level, you need to show leadership qualities, and part of that of leadership qualities is walking away at certain times when things don't go your way. I understand his point of the timeout there. The game was over. I know Wisconsin was saying they were having a tough time bringing the ball up the court, but there's 10 seconds to go. It's not like it's going to do anything to change the outcome of the game. So I thought the timeout was definitely unnecessary.
I'll say this too, not to interrupt you, but I'll say this. Okay, he said the timeout was unnecessary, but they are also playing full court defense. Is that necessary when you're up by that much, or you're losing by that much?
That's true.
That's a good point too. I mean, if you're gonna play full court defense, then I get why he called a timeout.
Yeah.
If you just play the clock to the end. So I'm going to play the clock to the end.
That point. They could.
Yeah, I don't think Juwan Howard want to play football against Bill Belichick, because he'd be fighting him at the end of every single game. Because we know Bill Belichick plays until it hits 0. But I think the suspension is the right thing to do. I didn't think he should have gotten fired over this. But good point Twan made. This is his second strike against them. I think any other incident, he'll no longer be the head coach of Michigan. I think it'll be interesting. I think they have 5 regular season games to go. They're already on the bubble for the tournament, so we'll see how these last 5 games go. Sometimes teams excel in this, especially if they want, they feel they're supporting their coach, and then sometimes it goes the other way. Teams fall apart. So we'll see how the Michigan team handles the whole situation, and how it propels them going into the tournament, if they can make the tournament at all. And again, getting fired for it, I would think that would be a little extreme.
I think we all agree on that. But
to
your point, Vinny,
the
whole leadership. I mean, you're 100% right. When you go to these kids' homes and you're recruiting them, they have to believe in you as a coach. So by doing that, you exemplify, to have that kind of behavior. It just puts it just puts some bad voodoo in that team right now as far as who wants to go play for him after an incident like that. You have to show leadership. You have to show discipline. And now, Twan, like you said, this is strike 2. So hopefully there's something. And yes, there's going to be games after this that there's tension, that you want to yell, that you want to do stuff, but be able to compose yourself and lead your team. And that's what has to happen from this.
Yeah. Like we said earlier today, the days of Bobby Knight throwing chairs at people is long gone. So, Juwan Howard will I think he'll address the situation. Listening to a lot of people that know him and the kind of person he is, says he's a really good person. He was a really good teammate, a really good assistant coach down in Miami, really well liked throughout the basketball community. So I think this suspension, he'll understand what happens and continue to move forward with that. All right. So, also yesterday we had the NBA All-Star game, which, like I always say with these exhibition games, I can't stand them. I can't stand watching them. But at the same time, I do like the skill competition part of it, which probably the worst dunking contest I ever saw on Saturday night. That was ridiculous. But the 3-point contest was interesting, a lot of fun. But just to flip back to the game yesterday, despite not liking the whole thing and everything, I thought it was pretty impressive, no matter which way you play defense or not play defense, that Steph Curry still did make 16 3-pointers, and from the distance that he can shoot that ball out. Mike, I know you were much more interested in the All-Star game than me, enjoyed it a little bit more, so I'll get some of your feedback on what you saw.
Well, the slam dunk contest, I was just happy that the Knicks get some kind of recognition with Obi Toppin. So finally some good recognition. But the slam dunk contest itself was awful. And it felt like, you're not an actor that's redoing scenes like 10 times. Their success rate was less than the 3-point contest. I mean, it was true. Like it was hard to see that them just missing dunks over and over, getting second chances and doing this. And, I remember the dunk contests of years ago with Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan. I just look back at that and what this was, and they definitely have to change some things around. So I'm happy for Obi Toppin. The dunk contest itself was not good. The 3-point contest I really enjoyed. It was exciting. It was competitive. I like, aside from the money ball, they had something next to the money ball that you were awarded 3 points. It was fun to watch. And then Steph Curry, I felt like I was like in an NBA Jam. He was on fire every shot. It was unbelievable to watch. But the most important thing that I got out of that All-Star game was the 75th anniversary and the halftime show. And I got chills just seeing all those players come up from all generations. And if you watch the broadcast on TNT those guys are the best. Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaq, and Ernie Johnson. Just it was unbelievable. And Shaq was just really paying tribute to those like Bill Russell and Oscar Robinson. And because of those types of players, what they have today was really inspiring. So definitely check that out on YouTube, what Shaq and those guys had to say. It was a good night, high scoring affair. LeBron had the winning shot, kind of quintessential coming back to Cleveland, but it was fun to watch. And I think they just have to work on that slam dunk contest. That was not good. But congrats, Obi, because I'm happy for you.
That's right. Good job, Obi. Twan, any thoughts?
I mean, I like watching seeing all the old legends come out for the 75th anniversary team. I thought that was pretty cool. We hadn't seen some of those guys in a little while, and you kind of live it, being a little bit nostalgic. Just seeing some of those guys come back, and especially you watched them as a kid. So I thought that was probably the best thing out of All-Star weekend. As far as the dunk contest, it is what it is at this point. I don't know what more you can do. I think we say this kind of like every year. It's like the dunk contest. I think somebody, I forgot who it was, brought up a good point. It might have been Bill Simmons said this, that the dunk contest shouldn't be last, because usually the last event is always the best event, the one that everybody's waiting on. I think if the dunk contest was a little bit sooner, like first or second, then I think it might not be as bad as what it is, or it is not as glaring because you're waiting and waiting, and the dunk contest used to be the highlight of All-Star Weekend, but of course it's not anymore. So yeah, obviously I have a problem with that, and I didn't necessarily like the new way they did the skills challenge either. I thought it was I like the old way personally a little bit better, where you kind of go through all the obstacles and you shoot and all that. So yeah, I thought that, but the 3-point competition is always fun and exciting. But yeah, I thought it was okay, just All-Star Weekend in general. But obviously, just seeing those old stars come back out, along with some of today's players, definitely made a highlight of my weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see that top 75. And based off that top 75, ESPN ranked all 76 players, which there was a tie, which we had 76 players instead of 75. But they did a ranking of the top 75 in order. I'm just going to read the top 10 off and see what you guys think of not only who's in the top 10, the order of 10. So 10 was Kobe. 9 was Oscar Robertson. 8 was Tim Duncan. 7 is Larry Bird. 6 is Bill Russell. 5 was Wilt. 4 was Magic. 3 was Kareem. 2, LeBron. And, of course, number 1, Michael Jordan. I have a little concern, and I'll talk about the top 10. My only real big beef of the 10 is Kobe being 10. I think he should be a little higher up the food chain there. I can't really talk too much about Oscar Robertson because I never saw him play. I know if you talk to some of the old timers that did, they'll probably want to move him up. But for me, I think Kobe was a better player than Tim Duncan was throughout his career. So for me, I would move him past Duncan. I also think he borderlines Larry Bird there, so I can almost see him being ahead of Bird. Bill Russell behind Wilt bothers me a little bit also. In that Wilt isn't the perennial scorer and the all-time great scorer. Just that Russell won a lot of championships, was the perennial guy when it came to winning in the NBA, still has more championships than everybody. So to me, I would just slide him in front of Wilt. To me, the top 4 is the way I would do the 4. I always look at Magic as the 4th best. Kareem, to me, when I saw him when I was growing up, I thought he was the best player I ever saw until Jordan came around. And to me, Michael Jordan will always be number 1. It's hard for me to put LeBron ahead of him. I think LeBron physically talented more than any of these guys, but I always put him a little bit behind Jordan just because of the amount of winning Jordan did, the way Jordan won, the way Jordan changed, the way people watch basketball. I always talk about if someone walked into the room, if Michael Jordan walked into the room with Barack Obama, I think more people would flock to Michael Jordan than Barack Obama. It's just the way I look at, Michael Jordan as a whole star, not just at a basketball level. Mike, some of your thoughts on the top 10?
I think it was a pretty stellar top 10. I agree with you, Vinny, on Tim Duncan. I think a phenomenal player. He won 5 championships over 3 decades, finals MVP 3 times. But then I look at Kobe, yes, I think he should be ahead of him. Then I look at people like, Shaq or Julius Erving or Hakeem Olajuwon right behind there. And I feel those guys are definitely deserving of being the top 10, but it's so hard to place them when you have all these great players. But the only one that I felt was, and don't get me wrong, he was a phenomenal player, but I think there's people that should be ahead of Tim Duncan. The rest of them, I think, makes sense. I think with the order of what they accomplished, championships, MVPs, what they did for their teams. But just seeing some of those people right outside of there, like Shaq, Akeem, Dr. J, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. Twan, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this too in the top 10.
I mean, I think I don't have a problem with the top 10, just maybe the order of it. I probably would have Kobe a little bit higher. Tim Duncan is, I just think a lot of people sleep on him just simply because he's such a quiet individual and he never really aspired to be on anybody's top list or whatever. He just went out there and did his job, and that was good enough for him. And you don't hear much about Tim Duncan these days, although he's actually an assistant coach down there in San Antonio with Greg Popovich. So yeah, I think Tim Duncan is definitely one of the best players I've ever seen as well. But yeah, I probably would have Kobe, slightly ahead of him, but it's splitting hairs. Both of those guys end up winning 5 championships, and obviously the people think about the MVPs and finals and also regular season. So yeah, I think it can go either way. I think the top 5 for me, that's probably how I would go. I know the argument with Bill Russell. Obviously, he doesn't have the numbers to back up everything up, but he does have the championships. So yeah, I get probably why some people would put Russell ahead of Chamberlain, but Wilt was just like a scoring machine. So I definitely get why he's a top 5 performer. For me, only thing I would do, I would probably have LeBron maybe 3rd and have Kareem and Jordan 1 and 2, because it goes back to what Vince said. I think Kareem was the best player in the NBA of all time, and still the case can be made too that Kareem could be the best player of all time. Along with Jordan and LeBron. But I think Jordan just was the one to surpass him in a lot of different ways. But yeah, I think Kareem, just the 6 championships, the MVPs, doing it on different teams, sort of like LeBron, but the eras and everything like that, I definitely think he is probably the second best player. Usually, the second best player consensus of all time for most part. Although people kind of saying LeBron is nowadays, but I definitely think Kareem definitely has a case for not only second, but also the best player of all time.
I think when you look at Kareem's total basketball career, and when I talk about total, I'm talking from his time from high school at Power Memorial to UCLA to his Milwaukee Bucks, Lakers career. The guy was the top player from the age of 14 years old until, let's just say, 35, right? He was the best high school player in the country. He was the best college player in the country, and he was the best NBA player at the time when he played in those 70s and 80s. So I think if you take all facets of his career, because you can find guys that had phenomenal college careers that didn't translate to the NBA, guys that had good college careers, great NBA careers, so on and so forth, back and forth. But the total package, when you look at it, I don't find anyone in the history of basketball that has done the level of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in my opinion.
So would you put him ahead of LeBron?
No, because it's just NBA, right? This is top NBA players.
Yeah. Yes.
So when I look at the NBA careers, and like I said, when I first really watched basketball, Kareem was the guy. Then Jordan came along, and I was like, wow, there's no one better than Jordan. And now LeBron, and I give LeBron his props. I think, sometimes people my age, around my age, that saw more of Jordan, like when they grew up, when they were in high school and college, and they don't give LeBron a lot of say. And then the newer generation they don't really know Jordan, but I look at it, and I just think LeBron is a little better than Kareem when it comes to his NBA career, especially at the level he's playing at still to this day. And then I just don't see anyone topping Jordan. My dad, who was a big NBA guy, watched Oscar Robinson, watched all the old time guys, went to the Knicks, 1969, was in the Garden a lot. He would tell me that Michael Jordan was the best player he ever saw. So that was even an older timer person that saw Oscar and Jerry West and Elgin Baylor and all those Wilt and all those guys to Jordan. And he always told me that Jordan was the best player he ever saw. But again, everyone's different when they judge these things. You You get homers also, right? Like people that lived in Cleveland or lived in Chicago, they're going to look at things a lot differently. You're going to have people in Boston are going to tell you that Bill Russell and Larry Bird, were the best players they ever saw. So everything changes when it comes to the overall thing. But for me, those are the top three. I think that order is correct, and I'm good with it.
Yeah, I think for everything that he dealt with, LeBron just killed it as far as just all the high school publicity. I know you talked about Kareem as well, but it wasn't like a magnifying glass on Kareem like it was LeBron. Mm-hmm. And just to come out having his high school games televised on TV, and back then it was just like unheard of having your games like on ESPN, and then having the world watching you. And then from there, going straight to the NBA, number one pick overall, and then doing what he did. I mean, I don't even think anybody thought he would have the career that he did. I think people thought he'd be a great player, but not like just all-time top 3, 4 best players of all time great. And he's still, even though, all the scrutiny and everything like that, exceeded expectations. So you have to give him props on that, just Absolutely. For him to have the career that he did under the magnifying glass of everything, including, introduction to like social media.
Yeah, that's, a lot more spotlight on guys nowadays than it used to be. Definitely is. So I'm going to tell you some of my real big problems with this top 75 list and where these guys are ranked. So for one, Bill Walton was ranked number 44. So I look at Bill Walton as a phenomenal college basketball player. Maybe number 2 to Kareem when you look at the total package. Came into the NBA. Did great things early in his career with Portland, then had suffered a lot of injuries, didn't play, finally came back as the sixth man with the 86 Celtics, won a championship, so showed a lot. But his NBA career is not phenomenal. And to be ranked 44 with, on a list with a lot of these guys, telling me he's one of the top 50 NBA players of all time, I don't see it. To me, I think that is way too high of a ranking for Bill Walton. Scotty Pippen at 32. I think he's always overshadowed by Jordan. But to me, Scotty Pippen, one of the best players I ever saw. I think ranking him 32 is a little criminal, especially when you rank Giannis at 18. Not saying that Giannis has a shot of being a top 20 player, but he's only won one championship. He's very early in his career. Scottie Pippen was part of, those 6 NBA championships. He was a major part of what those Bulls teams put together. So I look at those as some real issues for me when it comes to judging this top list. Mike, anything stand out to you on the list? I know you talked about Dr. J and some of the higher up guys, but anybody a little lower?
It's hard. I don't know. It's so hard, Vinny, because it's not even about. It's also about the generation that these guys play to, comparing to different generation and the style of play.
Do you think Bill Walton is a top 50 NBA player?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
he was always injured.
Right.
He was always injured, and I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And the fact that Patrick Ewing's a 40 and Bill Walton's a 40, only a 44. Couple spots down, that bothers me. Because what Patrick Ewing did even though he didn't win a ring, what he did for the Knicks, I mean, it was unreal what he did for that organization. And Bill Walton, I mean, no one really knows about his playing career. I know he played for the San Diego Clippers and he played for the Celtics, but when he got to the Celtics, he was always hurt. Like Patrick was on the Knicks for 15 years, and he was. I mean, back then he was the first pick. He was Rookie of the Year. He played tough against those Bulls teams, those Pacers team. He was a big part of that. Him, Charles Oakley. And I want to tell you, was Charles Oakley on that list?
No.
Oh no.
So that's someone I felt should have been on it. Bernard King. I was disappointed that Bernard King was not on that list. Now, yes, Bill Walton was hurt, and also Bernard King was hurt. But the impact that Bernard King had in the NBA, he was right up there those couple years with like a Larry Bird and what the impact that he had. In '84, they went against the Celtics. It was a 7-game. The Knicks played him so hard. He had back-to-back 50-point games. Bernard King should have been on that list.
That's because Rory Sparrow was dishing to him.
Yeah, I was really surprised not to see Bernard King, and I thought even after that injury, he came back with the Washington Bullets and made the All-Star team, and he just had such impact. And I just felt that he got gypped.
Yeah.
I didn't see. Was Dwight Howard on there?
No, he barely missed out yet.
So I thought that was another one on the bubble that should have been on there. So again, it's a hard list, but I'd put these people above Bill Walton. I agree with you, Vinny. I mean, college player, yes. When I even saw him walk out, I was just very surprised by that.
Yeah, and he's a big personality for the NBA. I thought as a broadcaster, he's well known and all that. But again, there's a lot more to it, and I just think he's overrated in my opinion when it comes to his NBA career. Twan, any feelings on anyone you saw on the list that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think Bill Walton. I mean, he made the NBA All-50 team too, as well. So I think that's part of the reason why you get him on the list. I think everybody who was on the 50 team was on the 75 team. So if you're going to do that, then you're kind of left with 25 names that you could add to the list. So it's hard. It was hard to kind of, piece together all those lists. I probably wouldn't have put Carmelo on the list personally, although I think Carmelo has had a really good career, Hall of Fame career. But I don't know if I would have put him in the 75 either, along with, I think Anthony Davis is really good too. I don't know if I would have put him on there either. I'm trying to think of some more names that I probably wouldn't have put on there, but those are the guys that stood out to me. Just initially, I was like, "Wow, I can't believe they're on the list too as well." And then you look at some of the other names, like James Worthy. I feel like could possibly be a little bit higher, or maybe a Clyde Drexler could be a tad bit higher too as well. I feel like he had an underrated career. So yeah, I think it was definitely some people that again got slighted. But obviously, if you make the list, then I think you're in good company no matter where you are.
Yeah, I mean, do you think Giannis at this point in his career at 18 is too high?
Yeah, I wouldn't have put him on the list personally, but I think they put him on there simply because they're projecting him to be this great player eventually. I think we got that with some of the 50 team too, back in the days as well. So yeah, I think. Yeah, I think you're just projecting how great you think Giannis is going to be eventually and during his NBA career. But yeah, I think I wouldn't have put him on the list personally, at least not yet. But I think he's going to be a tremendous player, and arguably he's the best player in basketball right now. Yeah,
no, that's true. And I think Durant at 12 is good. I think he has
no problem with that.
I think he has a potential of getting top 10 if he can win a few more championships.
Yeah, if he had stayed healthy, like I think he would have been in the top 10 easily.
Yeah. All right. The best thing about these lists is good discussions.
Yes.
I think as we progress through this podcast and come up with different things, I think we'll do some of our own top 10 lists as time goes on, have some discussions, have some fun with it, and do that as time goes on. Twan, since we have you on, I want to just jump into a little Miami Dolphins, since you have some history covering the team and have talked to a lot of people down there in Miami, and get some of your feelings on Brian Flores, and if you know any background on Stephen Ross or anything of that nature.
I mean, it just, I guess if you were talking about the whole situation about Flores, just just trying to have a lawsuit against the NFL, and obviously with the Dolphins talking about them, Stephen Ross wanted him to take games. I think Ross would tell you he might have been joking, but I could tell you that they stripped that team down thinking that, we were going to not win games. I don't know if the plan was not to win any games, but I think I know the plan back then, when at least I was still covering them, was to get a top pick, to get the top pick in the NFL draft. And Brian Flores didn't necessarily want to do that. He wanted to try to win the games. He knew that this was his opportunity to have a head coaching job, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to try to win as many games as possible. And a lot of people thought that would be the worst team in football. The Dolphins ended up winning 5 games. Obviously not great, but definitely not the worst team that particular year, which was the Bengals. And also, I think the Dolphins ended up playing much harder in the second half of the season than in the first half. So his beef is there. It's just saying that Stephen Ross wanted him to take games, and also he even says that he could have taken a mid-season vacation. I don't know if I believe that necessarily, but because I think it would have been hard to justify your coach taking a bit of a sabbatical during the season. But the Dolphins wanting to tank and try to get the number 1 pick for whoever it was, would it be having a chance to draft Tua or Joe Burrow was the guy that Cincinnati took, obviously. So yeah, I mean that part is true, but was there some kind of financial incentive involved in it? That remains to be seen, but that's what he's going to try to prove, and it'd be interesting to see what they potentially have a case to find.
It almost reminds me of the Martha Stewart situation when she did insider trading and traded that stock, and then 2 years later the stock was worth more than when she actually bought it. They were tanking for Tua, and they ended up getting Tua anyway with the later pick, right? So yeah. It's like you did all these things to get the first overall pick, which everyone thought would have been Tua at the time. He suffered the hip injury, and then Joe Burrow has the monster year at LSU, the first overall pick, and then of course we know where his career's already gone. So I find it real interesting when these things happen, when everything. But interesting that you said that Ross would say, "Oh, I was joking about it," but as you knew, covering the team, they were trading everyone away and looking to actually get that first overall pick.
Yeah, I mean that was the plan, just to strip. Well, I think part of it was to strip, was reset the salary, reset their cap situation, because they had some bad contracts on that roster. So the way to do that is to trade players, to release them, and kind of start all over again. And that's what they wanted to do, and that's what they ended up doing. So I mean, the Dolphins felt like they were mediocre. So I think the best way they try to get back to the playoffs and relevancy is to obviously strip it down and start all over again. And that's kind of what they did. And other teams have done that too. I mean, I don't know if other teams are out there paying coaches to tank for them, but other teams have definitely done that. I think you're going to have an issue as long as you have a draft setup like the NFL has. Then you're going to have an issue with teams potentially wanting to do that, which is, I think now they need to think about having a draft lottery kind of a la like the NBA does too as well. Maybe I don't know if you can totally prevent it, but obviously slow it down, the chances of this happening.
Yeah, and integrity of the game is even more important now than it's ever been, especially with the online gambling sports books that are out there. The amount of money being bet on the NFL every year is phenomenal. And now with all these states legalizing the online gambling throughout each state, the integrity of the game is extremely important. And hearing owners tanking games or trying to tank seasons when you have these partnerships with these sports books and everything, I think that's even more important as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, I know. So we're excited to have Antwan on here, as he's written for a lot of different teams, a lot of columns, but he's currently out in Oregon, covering the Oregon Ducks. There's a lot going on out in Oregon, and I know, Mike, you have a couple of questions to start for Antwan about what's going on in Oregon.
Yeah, especially for our listeners, Twan. Like, I know you guys have for Oregon football, you have Dan Lanning. For those who don't know about him, I want to hear your thoughts about the new coach. And I know for years, Oregon always had kind of a stability with coaches, and I guess in the last maybe 5-10 years, they've had a switch over in coaches, and just want to get your thoughts on that and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think obviously right now it's been a lot of turnover, especially like like you alluded to with the last 5 years. You end up having Willie Taggart. He ended up staying a year and to leave to go to Florida State. Obviously that didn't work out, and he's now down at Florida Atlantic, which is down there in South Florida. But yeah, Mario Cristobal. I think all it counts was Mario was going to stay for the rest of his career, and then things have kind of unraveled pretty fast, especially with his family and his mother ended up getting sick. I don't necessarily know the update on that necessarily. I hadn't heard anything. Maybe she had gotten better, but uh, long story short, he ended up having to fly down to Miami after a game against Oregon State, and that kind of set the wheels in motion. And obviously, Miami had a rumored to have an opening, which later they did by firing Manny Diaz. But yeah, I mean, he wanted to go back home. He played at the University of Miami and decided that was his best option, best course of action, and that's what he wanted to do. And now you have Dan Lanning, who 35-year-old coach, defensive coordinator at Georgia, has had a lot of experience around the country, whether it be at Memphis, whether it be at Arizona State. Obviously, his time at Georgia, coming off winning a national championship as the defensive coordinator there at the Kirby Smart, and people are definitely excited, and they're definitely we'll see. I don't know how long Lennon may stay, but the hope is definitely he stays in Oregon for for a long period of time. But yeah, definitely Oregon has all the facilities, everything you need to be successful. It's just a matter of can he do that and at a place at Oregon who's going to want to contend for conference championships and potential national championships.
And if I'm not mistaken, speaking of that, I think you guys have Georgia first. I looked at the schedule.
They got Georgia week 1 in Atlanta. So yeah, that'll be definitely interesting. Kind of of coming full circle there. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that matchup goes about.
What's going on with the QB position? I was reading that there's a QB competition right now. What are your insights on that as far as this?
Well, spring ball hadn't started yet, but Bo Nix transferred from Auburn in December. So the consensus is he's the front runner to be the starting quarterback, but obviously they're going to have some kind of competition because when you have a new coach, every job is up for competition. So. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes, but yeah, Bo Nix. Obviously, his experience at Auburn is considered the front runner, especially when the Oregon offensive coordinator Kenny Diddleham, who he worked with him at Auburn too as well. So those two have a familiarity with each other. So we'll see how that goes, but yeah, definitely Ty Thompson, Jay Butterfield, also guys that are gonna have a chance to compete for that starting role as well.
Yeah. And I also heard that you guys got some good news on Friday that Chase Cota announced that he's going to be transferring. So he's coming back to play in the state that he grew up in. So that's exciting for Oregon football.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Cota name is big. His father, Chad Cota, All-American there in Oregon, obviously in the Oregon Hall of Fame, and ended up getting drafted by the Carolina Panthers too as well. Had a decent career there, but. Yeah, I mean, Oregon. I think it's big, obviously, for nostalgic reasons, but also the fact that Oregon needs some help at the receiver position. That they have a lot of young guys returning, a lot of sophomores, because due to transfers, and one of their leading receivers ended up leaving. One of them transferred, obviously, and Travis Dodd, their starting running back, who was their leading receiver reception-wise, and then the second leading receiver ended up leaving the NFL draft. So, yeah, they definitely needed some help with receivers. So I think that'll be a benefit to get a guy that has some game experience that can help some of the young guys along.
Yeah.
Talking about the NFL draft, Twan, Kayvon Thibodeau, looks like he will be a top 10 pick. I've seen projections, of course, high as number 1 overall. Can you give a little insight on how you think his game will translate to the NFL level?
Well, I think he could be one of the better defensive ends in the country. I mean, in the NFL, I think instantly. I mean, he has the strength too. He has the speed. He has everything you want to do defensive end, especially in the 4-3 scheme. I definitely think it is some questions about, obviously not necessarily about health, but more or less, I think some people have questioned his motor and kind of compared him to maybe like a Javion Clowney who played for the Browns last year. Who Clowney's had a decent career, but not necessarily the career I think a lot of people thought he would have coming out of South Carolina. So yeah, I think a lot of people have compared him to that. I think like I say, it wouldn't surprise me if Thibodeau were to be a perennial Pro Bowl type player, but it also would surprise me if he was to, have a decent career, not necessarily great too. I've kind of on the fence, so which way that might go. But yeah, I definitely think in Oregon, he definitely shows signs of dominance at times.
Yeah, I think Giants and Jeff fans are interested in seeing, where he falls in this draft because I think both teams can use an edge pass rusher. I think a guy like Thibodeau, if he could slide down to the 6-7 spots there that both teams are drafting at, I think that'll really excite the New York fan base a little bit because there's got to be something that excites New York football around here. It's just been like god awful. So
that's an understatement.
So, can you? So I saw the basketball team. Almost shocked the world the other day. Can you talk a little bit about the men's basketball team?
Yeah, I mean the men's. Yeah, they had a good game against Arizona, and they came up short, and now they're essentially fighting for their tournament lives this next few weeks too. To try to get to the NCAA tournament. Obviously, if you look at some of the bracketology and the projections that they have them out right now. So Oregon has some work to do. They got games against UCLA and USC coming up this weekend at home, and basically they need to win both of them. I think in order to make sure they get into the tournament, or either that, or they're probably gonna have to win the Pac-12 tournament to get in. That's basically where you are right now. I mean, they have nobody to blame but themselves by losing some tough games to Arizona and Cal, and they did have some good quality wins. But when you have bad losses the way that they have, you kind of put yourself in this corner. And right now they're fighting for their lives. And my guess is they're probably going to have to go very far in the Pac-12 tournament just to get into that tournament. Otherwise, they're going to be playing in the NIT this year.
Got it. And I know you do a lot of coverage of the women's team. Can you talk a little bit about where they are right now?
Well, they're in a much better spot. They're definitely in. They're slam dunk to get into the tournament. The question that will be with women's basketball is the top 4 seeds, top 16 teams in the tournament. Excuse me, get to play at home. They get to host their regional at home, the first and second round. So Oregon right now, the last time the projections were out, they were one of the top 16 teams. They were number 16. They've had some difficult losses since then. So I don't know if we'll find out on Thursday whether they're one of those top 16 teams. Otherwise, they'll have to travel somewhere for the first and second round of the tournament. And preferably, you want to play at home in front of your fans. Obviously, that gives you an advantage. Sure. But they'll have some opportunities. They're probably – they need to win, obviously, this week against Colorado and Utah, and then probably get pretty far in the Pac-12 tournament next week in order to secure that. Otherwise, like I said, I think as it stands right now, my guess would be they would probably be on the road somewhere, especially considering they've had some difficult losses and some tough games recently as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of West Coast college basketball this year. Gonzaga's number 1 on the men's side, and Stanford's number 1 on the women's side. It's kind of a big West Coast NCAA basketball season right now.
Yeah, I mean Gonzaga's, they've been one of the better teams men-wise for a real long time, and they've been trying to break through and win that national championship. And they got close last year losing to Baylor's. I think they have another great opportunity to do that this year, but there are definitely some other teams that could potentially get in there and upset them. And also win a national championship too. You look at Auburn, Kentucky, some of the other team, Kansas is always there too. So it's definitely going to be an interesting NCAA tournament this year.
Yeah, hopefully it looks like COVID is settling down. I think we'll have a much more normal tournament this year than we had last. I don't think we'll have teams bailing out or can't make it and everything that was going on with that. So, definitely looking forward to a really, really strong March Madness.
Yeah, so am I. I definitely am. It definitely be a change for sure, from what it's been the last few years.
Yeah. So, Mike, I was looking at the NBA as we head into the second half real quick, and just want to talk a little bit about second half teams. And I thought, looking at it, Phoenix to me was looking like they were really going to run away with the Western Conference, looking like they were putting themselves as the 1 seed. I know Golden State will give them issues, and there's a lot of competition. But when Chris Paul now is out 6 to 8 weeks, I think that's going to take a big hit on Phoenix. What are some of your thoughts on that Western Conference?
Yeah, so right now the Suns have a 6.5 game lead. So it's I think even with Chris Paul, and that's a huge loss, 6 to 8 weeks, you have so many other reinforcements like Mikal Bridges, Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and I want to give also a shout out to Javale McGee, because he's been a great backup for that position. And when Ayton with DeAndre is in foul trouble, he's come in and done a great job. And of course, Cam Johnson. So yeah, even though Chris Paul is a huge loss, I think the Suns can maintain it. I think Golden State will be a threat. And don't forget about the Grizzlies also. I think they could, they have a good team, and Ja Morant, and also Brandon Clark's been playing much better. But I'm hoping that the Suns could keep that first spot. And I think they're definitely the team to be in the West right now, even with the injury with Chris Paul. And I think hopefully they'll get them back before playoff time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Twan, with the Nets, adding Drummond, adding Seth Curry, Durant coming back from injury, hopefully healthy. Maybe New York will lean back the restrictions and mandates on vaccinated people, and Kyrie can play some home games. When you look at the Nets overall, do you think if they have that full squad, do you see them being the team that's still beating the East?
I think they could be. Yeah, I definitely think having obviously Durant, who I think is all world, especially when he's healthy, and Kyrie when he has a good headspace upon him. But yeah, I think just they're very deep. As you talked about, they have a ton of shooters. Getting Curry, I definitely think was big. I tend to still lean towards. I think that trade, especially with Simmons, is definitely going to benefit them in the long run. Short term, I'm not necessarily sure, because now you're hoping to have that chemistry and camaraderie just in time for the playoffs. And I don't know if they're going to be able to have that, especially when you have a guy like Kyrie Irving playing as a part-time player. So that kind of really hurts they'll be able to have that type of chemistry there, like I think you normally would. I think Philadelphia is definitely going to be a team to watch out for too, when having a guy obviously like Harden, and he got Embiid too as well, and the collection of players that they have. So I think short term, I think Philadelphia might be better, but in the long term, I think the Nets might be better. For me, I still like the Bucks there in the East. I know Miami and the Bulls are like the top two teams right now, but until we get to the playoff time, I'm not necessarily sure, especially when you got a team like the Bulls too, who, obviously you have a guy like DeMar DeRozan who's been through playoff series before, but not necessarily with the Bulls too in this collection of groups. So I need to see what he can do with that talent there. But they've had a tremendous run this season, and obviously the Miami Heat have done really well, and especially under Eric Spoelstra. But I have a feeling that nobody's probably going to pick them outside of Miami to come out the East, which is probably fine with Heat fans. But I think most people will probably say probably the Nets or the Bucks are probably going to be the teams to beat, or the Sixers, the teams to beat in the East.
What do the Heat fans think about Spoelstra? Because for me, I look at him and I think he's just the top coach. You know, they break down the team out there. They try to add different pieces, and he takes a real good young team and, you know, builds them up. They add Jimmy Butler and they have Bam and you know, I think he's just done a phenomenal job. How do actual Heat fans feel about him?
Well, they love him. They think he's very underrated as a coach. I think among NBA circles, they feel the same way. They rated him as a top 15 coach of all time. I don't know if I would have went that far personally, but I think Eric Spoelstra is definitely one of the top 3 coaches in the sport right now. Just he gets the most out of all his teams. And you know, I know a lot of people, the criticism will be, well, he won his championships under LeBron, but I also feel like he got the most out of LeBron. To be honest with you, he challenged LeBron, because when most coaches will probably just say, LeBron, you can do whatever you want to, you run the franchise and all this. I feel like Spoelstra, you know, coming from the Pat Riley tree, was like, hey, you know, you need to play defense. You need to do this. Yeah, you need to be you need to do as accountable as possible and hold those people to a standard, especially when you're having other superstars like a Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade on that team too as well. So yeah, I think if I always say LeBron, that was the best version of LeBron to me, is when he's with the Heat. I think that was when he was just, you know, just at his peak. Not saying he's not a great player now, but I just think obviously he's getting a little bit older, so and injuries are starting to hit. But yeah, I think Eric Spoelstra is just, for the rosters that he's had the last, like, throughout his tenure with the Heat, he's gotten the most out of, especially when some of those rosters had no business even being in the playoffs, more or less, maybe even winning the playoff series.
You know, I don't. You know, we've had plenty of conversations, me and you, about Cam Newton, and you know where his career has progressed as time has gone on. Do you see him continuing his career in the NFL after this season?
If he wants to, yeah. But it's going to depend on if he sees himself as, does he wants to come in and compete. And you know, I think he's cool with that, especially last year. I think he realizes he's not the same player that he used to be, and I think that's okay. But it's hard for somebody, like, especially with Cam's skill set, and obviously he's been the guy throughout his whole, you know, as you know, playing football. He was the, you know, the guy that got to beat outside of, you know, him being Tim Tebow's backup at Florida. But yeah, I definitely think if he wants to start, he wants a job in NFL, he can have one. It's not going to be a starting job probably, because I just don't see him as a, you know, 17 game starter anymore in the NFL. And I think we saw why last year with the Panthers, and you know, a little bit with the Patriots too. And yeah, I get the Panthers didn't have the best offensive line, and you know, there's some drops there too as well by receivers, but he's just not that guy anymore. And I don't, he could start a game or two for you, but I don't know if you want him as your long-term solution to start. I don't think he is a long-term solution as a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore. I think he's a backup, and that's perfectly fine. But it's just a matter of, will he be willing to swallow his pride and be able to come in and say, you know, hey, you know, I'm willing to be a backup quarterback, just in case something happens to this quarterback. And, you know, that remains to be seen outside of, you know, even though I know he was benched for Sam Darnold last year in Carolina, but I'm curious to see, will he willing to have that mindset, you know, moving forward, especially in a place where he couldn't start at all. Like, you have a better established quarterback there.
Yeah, no, I definitely see him as a backup moving forward. You know, I think that's where his career has progressed since Von Miller sacked him a few times in that Super Bowl. He's just never been the same guy since that game.
Well, I think he was fine. I think he had some good years after that. I think when TJ Watt hit him and really hurt his shoulder, and then he ended up having another shoulder surgery, excuse me. I definitely think he just wasn't that guy. And he already had shoulder problems anyway. And then that really compounded things too. And yeah, then he ended up having a foot injury after that, and then missed that entire season. And it's just been one thing back to back. If it's not injuries, it's been inconsistent play, and it's just going to be hard, especially with somebody that's taking the beating that he took earlier in his career.
Yeah, those injuries definitely add up. Mike, I think as a homework assignment for you, you should say shoulder surgery 5 times really fast.
I'll work on that, man.
Twan, I really appreciate you coming on. Like I told Mike before you came on, we used to do this together about 10 years ago here and there. You would come on and do podcasts with me, and really appreciated back then, and really appreciate it now. So thank you for your time.
Thank y'all, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So for everyone that wants to read some of Twan's articles, he is at the Register Guard. You can go to registerguard.com, look up the Oregon sports section, and he writes articles basically on everything Oregon Ducks, and does a great job. He's one of the top guys in the business, in my opinion. So appreciate it again. So Mike, any final thoughts?
No, it was great having Twan on. It's always, we talk a lot about NBA, we talked a lot about NFL, but it's good talking about Oregon football because our audience will probably be interested in seeing what's going on with that, what's going on with their basketball program, what's going on with their football program. So it's good to get into a new area like that. So we really appreciate that. And then, of course, just reminiscing about the 75 players today. Again, I got chills when all those people came out. It was really awesome to see. And it was a good time to have that all-star game right after NFL because I think a lot of people were sad, hey, NFL's done. But to have that kind of ceremony with the 75 greatest players was great the week after just to keep that momentum. So
yeah, and hopefully we get some good news on the Major League Baseball front this week, and April comes and we can talk about some baseball. So
yeah, that's
what I'm hoping for. Yeah. So, all right, guys, it was a really good show.
Great show.
Here we are done with 6 episodes. Mike thought, after episode 2 that we would quit, but we're keep going. We're going. We're going.
That's right.
We're 6 going for 60. So, that's the way I look at it. So again, thank you, Twan, for spending time with us. And for Vin and Mike, we'll see you next week.